And we're rolling.
Welcome to Long Toss, everybody. Episode 27. Normally we have a list of players and their numbers to coincide with the episode, but obviously number 27, how can this not be Vladdy Jr.'s episode? So that's an easy one, exactly. Connor supporting back there. We'll start with some housekeeping here. I'm Scott Belford. I got tons of great guests here and more. If you're on Twitter, that's what we called Garth is and more. Very apologetic about that. Adam, normally with us, he is going to be hanging out with his parents tonight. So I'm taking the lead on this one. This is always brought to you by Out Hustle My Yesterday Apparel. Oh My Apparel, right here in Calgary. Canadian made, Canadian designed. You can go to Oh My on Instagram, and anything you order, if you type in Walkoff as your code, you get a 14% discount on that. They've got some killer tees. I'm sporting mine right here, and they're all limited edition. So if you get a hoodie or a t-shirt, you're not going to run into someone with the same clothing on. What a joy. All right, so let's start here with going around the horn here and welcoming everyone to the show. Joined, as always, by our Iron Man, Iron Lady, Baseball Jen. Hello.
How's it going?
We're good. Excited to have a couple new faces on the show. We'll get to Connor. Connor, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate being on.
And Connor, you have been a follower of the Walk-Off for years now. You've been one of those OG followers, and now you're running your own podcast, which is awesome. Want to plug that?
Oh, yeah, it's the Flight Deck podcast. Me and my good friend Brant, we started it about, ironically, it was the first episode went out the day Charlie got fired. So we've been going ever since then. Yeah, we've been going ever since then, about once a week, just talking all things Blue Jays and our love of Cavan, Biggio, and Danny Jansen.
Love it. We're also joined by friend of the show. We've had him on and just talked to him one-on-one before. Former MLB player, former Blue Jays, sporting the sweet jersey. Jeff Fry, welcome to the Walk-Off. Look at that.
Thanks a lot, Scott. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward
to it. Yeah, we're excited to talk some baseball with you here. I know we've got plenty of griping to do about where these Blue Jays are right now, so I'm sure we'll get into it. Also just joined here by Pat McDonald, good friend out of Toronto, comedian. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me back. I apologize for running late. I had Jeff texting me, telling me I was fucking it all up. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear or not, but I did.
Well, we're in it now, right?
Yes, but I'm wearing my free Budweiser Blue Jay shirt. Good to see you again, Jeff. How you doing, man?
You too, buddy. I'm good, man.
All right, and last and not least, our good friend, regular to the show. So regular that he is sometimes forgotten when I'm promoting this show on Twitter. Garth Yorgi, the handle Garth anyways. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thanks for thinking about me, having me back on the show.
Were you out on the boat most of the day, or did you catch the game?
Yeah, no, I got home right around the second inning, so I missed like the good part of the game. So,
okay, so let's start with that. Obviously, these Toronto Blue Jays have been a little bit frustrating to watch. They've been a very up and down team all season, as we're all aware. And I know that one thing that stood out to me while I was kind of going through the numbers is that when it comes to contending teams in the American League, no team is worse against 500 or above clubs than this Toronto Blue Jays team. And they kind of showed it again, going into Baltimore, losing 2, getting 1 rained out. And I've never been happier for a rain out. And then, of course, only winning 1 out of 3 at home against the Guardians, who just continue to surprise and surge. So let's start with you, Pat. How are you feeling right now about this Toronto Blue Jays team and this Guardians series we just watched them lose?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't catch the entire series. I caught probably about half of the total innings played. I mean, you need more guys kind of connecting, whether it's hitting or pitching at the same time. Like you look at a guy like Gurriel, who's been hitting very well over the past, month or so. Vladdy today went hitless for the first time, not including the All-Star game, for the first time in a month. His last hitless game was July 14th. So you have a lot of guys doing things, but then, Ryu's been out for a while. He's gone for the season. Kikuchi, I mean, calling him hit and miss would be very generous. He's been overall shit aside from a handful of games. And then Stripling goes down with an injury. And so, you have some positives. Mitch White pitching fairly well in his limited time with the team. And Gosman he wasn't on his game today, which it happens to anybody. He's pitched exceptionally well all season, I would say. It's just, I think a lot of it is situational. If you look at a guy like Espinal, who I love, really big fan of him for a number of reasons. When it comes down to clutch hitting, he's one of the worst hitters in baseball. And if I were to sift through the numbers, I would imagine that we probably have a handful of guys that are like that as well. And so it's really just about, the whole team coming together, I think, and, really getting things done at the same time.
I'm really curious when you talk clutch hitting, Jeff, and you're maybe one who can speak on this. Is that a little bit of luck? Like when it comes to coming up big in a situation, do the numbers even out over time, or is a clutch hitting average actually mean something?
Well, I think there's a clutch gene in certain players that, it's not by accident. These guys continue to come up big in certain situations, and some guys kind of melt in those situations and the moment's too big for them. Obviously hitting it, there's a lot of luck involved in hitting. You could smoke a ball right at somebody and have an 0 for 1 and hit a blooper to right, and bounce over a guy's head and hit for the cycle. So there's a lot of luck involved in hitting. But I think there is actually a clutch gene in certain guys that, was it an accident that David Ortiz had so many big hits in the playoffs, or Derek Jeter, and A-Rod sucked in the playoffs? Some guys have it in them to do special things in the big moments, and some guys just don't have it.
And sorry, Jeff, don't you think, and I'm sorry, Scott, I'm not trying to become a co-host here or anything. I'm just curious, though, as a guy
co-host away, Pat. Co-host away.
Okay, thank you. You can take the rest of the night off, Scott. Crack a beer, buddy. Relax. I'm just curious, Jeff, how much of kind of the so-called clutch thing would you attribute to a hitter changing their approach in a given situation or a different count?
No, I think it's a big part of it. I think you have to, what we don't see a lot of in baseball these days is guys making adjustments to the way the defense is playing them. And, I know we'll probably get into this at some point about the analytics stuff, but, when you have one guy on the left side of the infield and the guy's throwing you fastballs middle away and you can't hit it that way, it's because you're not trying. And I think we see that a lot in Major League Baseball. It's just the guys have been almost brainwashed to not do that and just keep with your swing. And if you strike out, that's fine. And you have to know the situation of the game and take what the other team gives you. That's what baseball's always been, exploit the other team's weaknesses. And I just don't think we see that as much anymore, Pat.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, 3 runs in this Guardians series.
Oh, I didn't. Wow, that's terrible.
3 runs, guys. Like, that's not going to win you any games. It's actually mind-blowing that they did win a game. Connor, what did you think of Mitch White's performance?
Oh, well, it started terrifyingly bad. He actually should have had 8 straight balls, but they gave him a strike that was way high, which the umpire was given that the whole day. But other than that,
he even laughed at that, right?
Yeah, he's like, all right, I got away with it. It's cool. We're good. Move on. But other than that, he looked like what we all expected. He'd go maybe 5 innings, give up a couple hits, get like a couple strikeouts. Surprisingly, one on Jose Ramirez, which I did not expect. But he was fine. He's what I expected out of him, which is not. It's more than I can say for most pitchers that we have. It was something that we expected.
How about you, Garth?
Oh man, like I don't. This team seems to be all or nothing. Like we're either our pitchers are on and we're scoring 15 runs a game, or the pitchers are off that night and we can't bail them out. It's been a while since I've seen the Jays like bail out a pitcher who's not, having their best game. Like today, Gosman wasn't terrible. He had some balls fall in, like there were some mishaps in the field, and we just didn't bail him out, and I think that's kind of the issue I have with the whole season. It's just this all or nothing, where everything is clicking or nothing is clicking. And it would be nice to, I don't want to say find a happy medium, but, a game where Manoah or Gosman or Barrios, where they're not being dominant, our offense has to come through for them. And it's just not there.
I think the last time that the Blue Jays bailed out a pitcher was during that 8-game win streak they had again when they played the Angels for 4. Barrios gave up 6, and they ended up winning that game. I think they scored 11 runs for him. But that was a month and a half, 2 months ago. And other than that, it's been nothing.
Exactly. Like if our pitcher has a bad game, we lose. And good teams find a way to combat that. Good teams find a way to scrape out those 8-7 wins. But we don't. Like we're if the other team scores 8, we're scoring 1 or 2. And it just it's not this late in the season. I mean, I don't know what else you do about that, but it's just, like I said, it's just this all or nothing with this team. It's just heartbreaking to see.
Sorry, gang, my sound's out. Give me 1 second. Feel free to continue to.
Jen, what do you think?
I believe if you take away the Boston series, which was an anomaly, of course, that one game where they scored 24 runs or whatever the heck it was, I believe they have a plus 17 run differential if you take away that series. And that just highlights the underperformance of this offense the entire season. And what I find really frustrating is that, we on this podcast and other fans and media personnel continue to say, if this team plays, at the level they're capable of, and if everybody gets going, and if, but it hasn't happened, and it's August 14th. And we still haven't seen that, other than 2 stretches of, the 8-game win streak, and then the stretch right after Montoya was fired. Other than those stretches, and let's be honest, those games were against subpar teams, most of them. This team has been very lackluster, and I don't know what there is to say about it at this point. And to Jeff's point, the earlier, it's something that I've been thinking about too, about, clearly some of these guys need to change their approach, at least in certain situations. And why that's not happening, I don't know. But if something's not working for you, maybe it's always worked for you. Maybe it worked for you in the minor leagues. And Jeff, you can speak to this way better than I can. But if it's no longer working for you, maybe something's got to give a little bit. Maybe there needs to be an adjustment that is made. And it just seems to me like a number of guys on this team have to make an adjustment, and it hasn't come.
When it comes to making an adjustment, is that something that's on the player, Jeff, or can the coaching staff come to them and be like, okay, it's time to try something new?
Oh, it's on the player. I mean, if you're just going to accept failure, you're not going to be around for very long. A lot of times they'll, the coaches, certain coaches will come to you. Sometimes they wait for you to come to them. But it should be a natural thing that, okay, I'm not getting the job done. I'm going to have to make some changes. Maybe they're just subtle changes or whatever, and find out how I can turn this around. And it's definitely on the player to do that. And I think that's, I don't watch Blue Jays games. I don't get their games down here unless they're on the MLB network. So I know they have a lot of great young players and seem to be underperforming, but this is the case throughout Major League Baseball. Players are not making adjustments. Joey Gallo hit 160 for a year. Mm-hmm. In a year. Yeah. 160. How do you stay in the major leagues hitting 160? When you have a big contract, I guess they don't want to send you down. But if you look throughout baseball, there's more guys hitting under 200 or around 220 and below than they've ever had in the history of baseball. And this nonsense that the pitching is just so much better than it's ever been is garbage. These guys aren't trying to do anything different because they're being told by the analytics departments to not do that. We don't want you shortening up with 2 swings. We'd rather you stay after and try and drive the ball in the air on the line, and maybe you'll hit a 3-run home run. Rather you do that than just put it in play and hit a ground ball that if you hit a ground ball, you're going to be out anyway. That's the mindset.
Joey Gallo's a great example because you watch the way everyone shifts him and the literal entire left side of the field is empty. Like there's times where it's like there's not even anyone on the other side of second base. They're all on the right-hand side, and he doesn't seem to adjust. And I mean, he got chased out of New York for it. But
you better adjust pretty soon, or he's going to be in the minor leagues. Well, I just know how long you can keep hitting 160 and stay a major leaguer.
Well, Jeff, do they have to adjust? Because this is one of the weirder seasons in baseball that we know the shift is leaving after this season. And a lot of the times the coaches will probably say, hey, next year, those balls are going to be in the gap, in doubles and everything like that, because there's not going to be 4 people on one side. There's not going to be 4 outfielders anymore like the Blue Jays run all the time. It's more of you don't have to push it to the other side of the infield. It's just stay with your approach and it'll be fine next year kind of thing.
Well, I'm hoping that they come to their senses and don't outlaw the shifts.
I'm with you there.
Don't, because I mean, all we need is another rule change in baseball, right? And
to legislate Joey Gallo into being a good player.
Oh yeah.
It's going down the tubes, in my opinion, and it's if a coach says that to Joey Gallo, don't worry about it next year. That's going to be a hit. That is a huge disservice to Joey Gallo because they still have almost just under 2 months of the season left. We're trying to win this year. Now, he goes from the best team in the American League to the best team in the National League. They have 3 guys that have had pretty good careers in their lineup with Bellinger and Muncy and Gallo. And Muncy's got hot and he's hitting 189 and Joey's hitting 169 and Bellinger's hitting 210. That's like the bottom 3 in the lineup.
Bottom 3.
It's incredible.
It confuses me.
I was looking at it sort of with the Blue Jays and Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who's actually made adjustments, right? And we know we've always seen him be a really streaky player and incredibly frustrating that he's such a streaky player. But with his adjustments, he's actually having like his best season right now, right? He's hitting for average. He's hitting for on base percentage. Yes, his slugging has taken a dip, but he's exchanged power for contact. His chase rate is way down, and that's all just from these little adjustments that he's made. And those are sort of the adjustments that I'm sort of talking about, right? That some of these players might need to start making, because like I said, it's August 14th, and it feels late in the season to keep saying, well, if only these guys could put it all together.
Mm-hmm. It really does. Let's get into the Blue Jays starting pitching, and for a few reasons. Number one, I need everyone to talk me off the ledge a little bit here because it is without a doubt incredibly worrisome to watch this starting pitching staff go out there day in and day out. Kikuchi has been a mess. Barrios has been... It makes no sense to me. Jose Barrios has literally been one of the most consistent starters in all of baseball. And this year, he's been one of the most inconsistent. And not just inconsistent, like sometimes he's decent, sometimes he's not so good. Like sometimes he's unhittable, and then sometimes all that he does is give up hits. Then you look at Mitch White, just freshly acquired, but still not a long track record in the major leagues. I like him, but there's not a lot there to say, this guy can be the guy. After Gausman, you worry about Manoah's innings. Where is, like, Connor, talk me off the ledge. Why is this not something we should be worrying about? Or is this actually a pretty big thing?
It's a worry. It's a yes and no thing. With Kikuchi, just throw it in the draft garbage. Stripling has been injured for the last 2 weeks, so I haven't really been able to use him, but he's been really good. Mitch White is essentially what you originally wanted Ross Stripling to be this season before Ryu went down. And Jose Barrios, this week on my podcast, I had 2 takes that decided to blow up in my face as fast as possible. I looked at all of Jose Barrios' games prior to the one he had against Cleveland. There was 6 times where he gave up at least 5 runs. Now, you take those out. If you take those out, which I know it's 6 starts, you can't really, out of his 22, he's pitched 95 1/3 with a 3.02 ERA.
Yeah, he's been incredible.
Like,
his home and away splits are a mystery also.
Yeah, that's night and day. It's crazy.
Yeah. Home and away splits with even I know it's not starting, but if you look at Jordan Romano, his home and away splits, something's just weird. Jordan's given up maybe 3 runs at home this year, and he's a 4 ERA on the road, 5 ERA on the road.
I know why that happens.
Yes, please. I was going to
comfortability,
here, Jeff.
Too much nightlife on the road.
Really?
A lot of times. Get away.
I believe that.
You get away from mama and you get on that road trip and you're free and you're out with the boys all night. And then I'm not saying that's what happened or why it's happening, but it can happen.
It's the same in comedy because Scott and I did a show together some time ago in Windsor, Ontario, and things got a little wild, and I'll leave it at that.
Oh no!
Told you.
Yeah.
No, I get it. That's interesting. It's funny because you think of professional athletes as just they're on this pedestal, and how could they possibly go out and drink and have a good time and that affect their
and then you remember they're humans.
Of course, yeah, of course they're humans, and of course that could be a thing.
Yeah, they don't go out at home. They go home after the game to their family, and they go out on the road, and then it's like, where are you guys going tonight? Oh, we're gonna go over here, and next thing you know, just it happens.
What was one of the wildest nights you had, Jeff?
Oh, I never had any. I never went out. Every night.
Never.
Oh, that's so. I seem to recall some Jose Canseco stories, but
oh yeah, but those were. I mean, nobody was looking at me. They were just looking at Jose everywhere we went.
Fair enough.
So, Jeff, out of curiosity, when you see a guy like Jose Barrios, who is normally a very consistent pitcher and has a track record of being a shutdown guy, and then you see what's going on this year with the home and away splits and how inconsistent he's been, is that just something that happens sometimes in a year? Is this something that, as Jays fans look at his 6 years still under contract, should we be worried about this? Or do you, I feel like the guy will turn it around.
Well, I've seen that guy when I saw him when he first came up, and I was like, man, this dude is nasty. And for me, it's probably just a mental thing for him. He starts hearing the stuff about he doesn't perform on the road and he only does at home. So his next start on the road, he's going to psych himself out and say, man, I suck on the road. And then he's going to suck again. And he gets home and he's comfortable and he says, I pitch great at home, and he's going to feel comfortable and confident. He's going to go out there and pitch well at home again. It's just kind of snowballs, and but for me, I bet it's something mental.
So if you look at Manoah's innings and the fact that he is pitched more this year than he ever has, and I mean, there's obviously you got to go player by player. There's no actual way to know the perfect increase in innings should be, but typically teams tend to increase by about 30%, which he's already kind of hit. Do you think we're going to see this front office and this management team back off Manoah a little bit, being that they're in the heat of a playoff race and could need him more than anyone? Garth?
No. If they're intent on making the playoffs,
right?
What are they just gonna sit Manoah? If they're intent on making the playoffs, Manoah cannot miss a start, and he has to pitch awesome. If you want to limit his innings, get the offense to put up 10 runs. Pull him in the 5th. But if he's pitching great in a 2-1 game, you are not pulling Manoah. he's going to go 8 innings. And, like just getting back to Berríos.
It's playing with fire, though, right? It is playing with fire a little bit.
Yeah, you're playing with fire, but I mean, like, what are their options? You're going to call up Casey Lawrence to make 2 or 3 spot starts
between, right? Yeah.
No, exactly. What if anybody in the Jays organization can tell me a better option than just like letting Manoah cook, like I would love to hear it, because like maybe if there's another option, maybe we can get rid of another starting pitcher who is not pitching well. Like just let Manoah go. He's a big, strong dude, and he's gonna tell you when he like they're gonna be able to see, if his velocity drops down and he's hitting 93, 94 in his fastball, yeah, he's probably tired and maybe you should skip a start. But until that happens, man, you got to ride him. And another thing with Berríos, like one quick thing that I picked up on, he's tipping pitches again with his mouth guard. Everyone can see it. Like, does he need to wear that retainer while he's pitching? Like, it's a comfort thing. Like honestly, like why? Like wear that shit at when you go to sleep at night. Don't wear it on the mound.
He said he wears
the
it.
Montoya where he constantly has his hand over his mouth.
Well, whatever he has to do, but I mean, he can't be like opening his mouth and closing it. Like when his mouth is open, fastball, they're sitting on it and they're crushing it.
He said he wears it because he was clenching his jaw, and he said it helped him to be able to relax his jaw during the game, and I guess not have that neck strain, which I found really interesting because I wear a mouth guard at night because I also clench my jaw, and I actually find it makes it worse, to be completely honest. So I was surprised that was the explanation, but you're right, Garth. I do think that there's something.
There's a big bucket of gum in the dugout. Tell him to start chewing that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say regarding the mouth guard, how did you even pick up on the fact that that's the thing that's tipping his pitches? Did they mention it in a broadcast?
No, I saw a couple guys posted on Twitter, and then his last start, I really focused on it, and he's totally doing it. And
that's
like,
wild.
If I pick up on it, sure as shit, the scouting team from the team they're going to play next is picking up.
Yeah, and I think it was talked about like a couple of months ago, even.
Yeah, it was.
This was a conversation earlier in the year.
Yeah, when he was kind of struggling, and then he kind of sorted it out, but he's falling back to that pattern, and like they're just crushing his fastball right now. Like no one is missing on it.
Maybe he just needs to keep his mouth closed, literally, because I do remember the first time I'd ever seen that was Roger Clemens on the Jays. He wore a mouth guard. He did just fine. So as long as he keeps his mouth shut, hopefully if that's really what it is, that's one of the oddest things I've heard so far as a way to tip your pitches.
And if it is tipping pitches, that's almost the best news it could possibly be, right?
Well, he changed it earlier in the season. Like people picked up on it back in May when he had a pretty rough, like 2 or 3 starts. And then he was really good when he stopped doing it. Like people noticed it. But now he's doing it again. Like, yeah, it seems like it might be an easy fix. But, I mean, when he's on the mound, like you have a lot running through your head when you're in a major league game. You don't need to be thinking, okay, got to keep my mouth shut, or this guy's going to crush me. Like, I don't know. It just seems like such a weird little quirk that he has that should be easily fixed. But obviously it's not an easy fix because he's fucking doing it again.
That last start that he had, it was just weird. Like even further than the mouth guard. It didn't start great. And then there was the bunt single that went perfectly down the line. And then the 2 home run the 2 pitches that he gave up home runs on, they weren't bad necessarily. The Josh Naylor one was a high outside fastball that he got to. And then the Jose Ramirez one, that's just Jose Ramirez hitting the ball off the dirt. Like that was just a weird one for me because there's so much. Yeah, it was just weird.
So I want to really quickly circle back here to Manoah. Obviously, doctors and scientists are smarter than this entire panel together, and so they probably know best. But I am very curious, Jeff, what you think about the innings that Manoah has put. If sometimes people blow up, how much added innings actually means, and if him pitching 180, even though last year he pitched about 120, is actually going to be that big of a deal? Is that?
For me, I mean, looking how big and strong he is, I wouldn't think it would be a big deal. And I think it's a terrible message to send to your fan base when your team is trying to make the playoffs and we're going to back off our number one starter because we're more worried about 2-3 years down the road. I mean, look how it worked out for the Washington Nationals with Steven Strasburg. Okay. In my opinion, they're cursed because the baseball gods were pissed off when this guy's dealing and his agent went to the Nationals and they shut him down for the playoffs. And he's never really done a whole lot. It seems like he's always hurt now anyway. So, I mean, you just never know how many chances you're going to get to the playoffs. And, you think, oh, next year with the young team and the guys we have coming up, we're going to be going every year. Next thing you know, you don't make the playoffs for 10 years. So I think that you got to go, sorry, Jen.
Use the bullets when you got them, right?
You got to go balls to the wall and you got to lay it out there. And, at the end of the season, we'll look back and hopefully made the playoffs and everybody's healthy. If not, you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, I agree with your point, Jeff, and what Garth was saying earlier. I mean, he's the best. Gosman's a very good starting pitcher, but in my opinion, Manoah is the Jays' best pitcher, best starter, whatever. Yeah, he threw about 120 last year, as Scott mentioned, but until he starts kind of declining, I don't see an issue where you would kind of pull back. Playoffs are, not playoffs or not, but especially when they are in a wild card position and they don't have anybody to step up, like Garth mentioned. So it's like, what if, they missed the playoffs by one game last year? If it's the same this year and they're only trotting Manoah out every 8th day, bad message to your fan base is a good start, I would say.
Yeah.
I think it would be different if they had 10 more wins on the season, perhaps. Or if you knew that, Barrios was going to give you more than likely a good game every night and Kikuchi was not the mess that Kikuchi is, then I think maybe it's a little bit of a different approach, right? But when you can't count on Kikuchi at all and you are really questioning whether or not you can count on Barrios and you've got Stripling out, I know he's back this week, mind you, but you really don't have a long man out of the pen and so on and so forth. What are you going to do? Even if you want to limit Manoah's innings, you're just not in a position to do so.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that question. I do think you deserve, Jen, bonus points for adding a little culture by rolling the R's on Barrios' last name. That was a nice touch.
Hablo un pequeño de español.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay, whatever you say.
All right. Did we have anything to add Blue Jays wise before we get into a subject that I'm sure is going to take up a substantial amount of time in Fernando Tatis Jr.? Did we have anything to add here, folks?
I just want to point out,
Scott.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Scott. I need you to let me in the Zoom because I'm on my phone right now and it's going to die.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
See, this is where the trouble is that Adam is the one who is running it from his side and he's not at his computer. I'll send him a quick text here. You don't have a charger, eh, Pat?
I do, but then I can't stand my phone up.
Right.
I have the charger here.
Okay.
I'm sorry to derail things.
Yeah, well, good. The Blue Jays tend to derail things with themselves anyway, so we're used to it.
Text has been sent. We're fingers crossed here, Pat.
I'm going to say something while we're trying to figure the technical stuff out. When I played for the Blue Jays, and Cito Gaston was our hitting coach, he and Carlos Delgado were the best I'd ever seen at picking up the opponent's pitchers tipping their pitches. Okay, they would do little subtle things like hold their glove here for a fastball and here for a breaking ball, or they'd have their finger on top of their glove or whatever. Just the little stuff, minute stuff that most people wouldn't notice. But Cito was so good at it. And I heard back in the days when they had Paul Mauldin and Roberto Alomar, those guys, that they could pick up all that stuff. And I noticed I didn't want to know that stuff because I was looking for a fastball anyway, but I noticed that when we had a pitcher's stuff, when we knew what he was throwing, we crushed him. I mean, they couldn't hold down that offense. And then we'd go face a guy that didn't tip his pitches and we couldn't do shit. I mean, it was just like, man, how can we, scored 9 runs one game off this guy and the next day score 1 off this other guy? He's not very good. But because they didn't know what was coming, it's like they psyched themselves out and they couldn't hit as good, or we couldn't hit as good. And I don't know if I'm sure that still goes on in Toronto because it was going on back when the Blue Jays won their World Series titles, and it just kind of kept going on and on and on. So I'd be surprised if those guys didn't know that Berrios, there you go, was tipping his pitches, because they know what every pitcher on the other team when he's tipping pitches, so they should be able to notice that easily.
What percentage of pitchers do you think do tip their pitches, even very, very subtly?
I don't think it's a super high percentage. And I know guys did it back when I played, but I just never looked at that. I was looking for a fastball. I found out years later that Eckersley only tapped his leg like on a slider, and he only threw 2 pitches. So how is this guy still successful when everybody knew, when he did his funny windup or whatever, and he tapped his leg with his glove, that it was a slider? It was years later. I was like, man, I wish I knew that when I was facing him. But that stuff's not shared information. It's not like the Red Sox are going to tell the Yankees, hey, when you guys come to Toronto, watch Roger Clemens with his mouth guard in there. When he does something funny, it's a slider. You don't pass it. That's just like trade crack. You don't share that information. And sometimes, one of the things that I heard about Barry Bonds, what a lot of people, his teammates didn't like him, was he would see the other pitchers tipping their pitches, and he wouldn't even share it with his own teammates.
What?
Yeah.
Not even Jeff Kent?
All right, Barry.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's a prize too, right?
All right, let's get into the big news of the weekend, which was Fernando Tatis Jr., San Diego Padres. He's been suspended for 80 games for PED usage. And on top of that, one of the things that really stood out to me about this whole thing was the way AJ Preller talked about it, the way Manny Machado and Mike Clevenger talked about it. They really didn't kind of hold back any punches. They were very vocal about him being disappointed in him, feeling that he's let the team down numerous times before. And this is the thing. This isn't scrubs either, and I will throw to you first, Connor. But these aren't scrubs either, right? Like, Manny Machado's the other $300 million guy on this team, and Preller's the GM, right? So there's some weight behind this. Connor, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, well, first off, small thing. Mike Clevenger, right message, wrong person to say that.
True.
But the whole situation, the excuse that he gave was he was trying to treat ringworm for taking the PEDs. But he apparently was terrible at Googling, because there is a medicine that actually treats ringworm. It's called clobetasol, which is completely different, which is similar but completely different to what he did, which it's ridiculous. And if you're the Padres, does the deadline change at all if you know that he's going to be out for 80 games? Do you go get a shortstop instead of waiting for Fernando Tatis Jr. to get there, as opposed to getting Brandon Drury, who I don't think plays shortstop at all, like a day in his life? You may be looking at a completely different team. And the Padres are also in a situation, they're not close to winning their division. They're in a fight with the wild card just as much as the Blue Jays are. And he's destroyed a lot of goodwill for the little goodwill he had.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is there as well. I gave it some thought. Obviously, we've all heard about it to one degree or another. Do I believe that? So I have a cat, a 2-year-old cat. When we first got the cat, it had ringworm from the pet store we got it from. He's not muscular.
Oh, okay.
He's fucking ripped. Yeah, it's just Boner City over here. I'm telling you. So I think it's complete BS if he says it's anything other than intentional. And that's how I feel about, I would probably say 98% of situations like this where someone gets popped for an illegal substance. My thing is, he was already very successful, very good baseball player, very injury prone, but an elite baseball player. It would be I'm not excusing this scenario, but it would be one thing if he was in, say, his second season making $500,000 a year and he's trying to get that big contract. But he is so goddamn stupid. He has the big contract. Why? The only benefit is better numbers, I guess, but you're not going to get paid any more or any less. Well, that's not true because now he's not getting paid for half the season. So it's one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever heard of.
Well, this is my big question then for all of you, because it seemed very apparent. Obviously, cheating is shitty. All of that is garbage. But is it possible that this San Diego Padres clubhouse rallies around almost a fuck this spoiled kid type of thing? Like, like all the guys seemed like Manny Machado. We watched him kind of go head to head with him just last year, getting in that yelling match where he was like, this isn't all about you, right? Is that something that could possibly happen? Jeff, what do you think? Is that crazy? Or is this just going to hurt?
No. I mean, they have a lot of talented players, obviously, and it's just so disappointing. I mean, he hasn't played a game this year because he got hurt in the offseason riding a motorcycle.
Yeah. Which is also selfish.
$300 million contract or more, and then he's finally going to come back, and the team, the organization shows a huge commitment in acquiring Soto, and then this. I mean, it's unforgivable in my mind, and I'm with Pat when it comes to these type of deals, and I guess these players think the rest of us are just stupid. Oh, it was, I ate, a steak and I didn't realize that this was in there. Or I went to the GNC and I bought this protein powder, and it just so happens to have whatever. I mean, I'm tired of hearing these lies about, it was an accident and I feel so sorry that I hurt my organization. It's like, well, just be smarter. I mean, you got enough money to hire somebody to teach you to be smarter, and a lot of the Latino players have a huge entourage of people with them that do everything for them. One guy gets the lunch, another guy gets the dry cleaning, another guy picks up the wife at the airport, another guy picks up the girlfriend at the other airport. And so they have a huge entourage of people that surround yourself with at least one intelligent guy that anything you put in your body, he's monitoring and making sure it's legal.
If I had to guess, and obviously I don't know anything, but if I had to take a guess, he was taking Clostebol in order to maybe recover from the injury quicker. That would be my assumption. I'm sure he knew exactly what he was taking, and it had nothing to do with ringworm. I mean, I did a quick Google search on Clostebol, and the second thing that popped up, I'm going to read it word for word. Clostebol was initially developed in East Germany and used by athletes there to gain an athletic advantage. Come on. I have epilepsy. I don't take any medication of any kind unless I run it by my neurologist, right? Even the most minor things.
And Jen, you don't even make $300 million.
Right. But I like, that's how careful I am. I run everything through my neurologist. This guy, if it really were a ringworm medication, and I'm sure it wasn't, but you have this whole team of people. You have doctors, you have all of these people, hey, is this something I can take? And the answer would be no. So it's incredibly, whatever words you want to use, disappointing, frustrating, maddening, whatever, that he took it in the first place. But the excuse that has been provided is pretty absurd as well.
But let's jump off the deep end here. Is there any possible way of the Padres moving on from Fernando Tatis Jr., who is obviously still an incredible talent, a guy who is, could be the face of any franchise, like, could we see a Tatis for Ohtani kind of, like, how crazy could this get? Or
I don't think so.
The Padres are kind of handcuffed at this point, right? Like, they're with him.
They're stuck with him until the end of that contract, unless his attitude and behaviors change. Because, is there another of the 29 Major League Baseball teams that are willing to give up a number of pieces for a player like that, and B, willing to take on the financial commitment? Like, look at all the hijinks and bullshit that he's been up to in his very short tenure in Major League Baseball. Like, I wouldn't hire somebody like that. Are you kidding me?
I tweeted when this news broke. I tweeted, like, it's a good thing that the Padres and Tatis are only joined at the hip till 2034, or else it could maybe get awkward.
Yeah.
Like, and like we're only really focusing on the Padres and Tatis right now. But man, MLB must be like furious. Like, this is a guy that they have spent considerable money pushing as one of the faces of the game. This is just unacceptable. Like, this is like Mike Trout. This is Ronald Acuna. This is one of those guys getting dinged. And like, we're talking about, he's rich. He could have been a hell of a lot richer. Like, he just pissed away over $100 million in endorsement deals.
Oh, for sure.
Like for sure. Like little, like things that this has so many ramifications. Like, I collect baseball cards. There are people losing their fucking minds about this. People that have invested thousands of dollars in Fernando Tatis cards, and they're plummeting right now. Like, this isn't just does it hurt the Padres? Does it hurt Tatis? This hurts baseball. Like, it's different when Chris Colabello gets dinged and gets 80 games. Like, people are like, well, whatever, who gives a shit? He was barely holding on to a thing. That's why he probably took steroids, is because he wanted to stay up to MLB caliber. This is a guy that hit the genetic lottery. He was built to play baseball. And to do this is just, it's mind-numbingly dumb. And this is like one of numerous mind-numbingly dumb decisions that he's made. So he has an extra, he doesn't get to play until sometime in May next year. He's got until May to like get some people around him that aren't idiots. And he needs like a serious attitude adjustment between now and May, or the Padres are going to have a $330 million albatross.
And that's a really good point, Garth. Just the ramifications to baseball in general. And I was that was the first thing I thought of when the news broke, was like, can MLB have one freaking year, just one, where there's not a major, a major blow up in their face? After going through the sticky stuff last year, and then the shortened joke 60-game season, like, it's just like you go back in history and it's like one after another. Yeah.
Well, this is just like, I'm shocked that MLB, like 80 games, that's what's been collectively bargained. Like, that's what he was going to get. But I am shocked that MLB hasn't come out with like a stronger statement saying, like, like this guy is on the cover of video games. Whenever they try to promote like, MLB on TV, there's like clips of Tatis, wearing the chain and like, all this shit. And it's like,
yeah, because normally MLB is so good at addressing problems right away, right? They jump all over things.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it's just another, it's just another hit to the game, another hit towards marketing it to a different generation of viewers. And it's just pissing off like all of us older viewers who like lived through the steroid years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I don't know. It's heartbreaking to see a player of his caliber and his talent just make a decision that harms the entire game.
Jeff, when as a former player, and you don't need to get into the weeds on it at all, but have you ever run into a scenario where there was maybe something that happened within the clubhouse that just really rippled through the team? And even if you haven't, how do you think the players on the Padres can go about continuing to make progress as a team? Like, how do you compartmentalize what just happened and continue to chase a World Series in 2022?
Well, it just so happens that I was in a situation one time. It wasn't me, but it was one of my teammates with the Red Sox, Manny Alexander, who was, like a backup shortstop that got pulled over for traffic violation, and they found syringes of steroids in the glove compartment, and he blamed the assistant clubhouse manager of our team and said it was his, and he didn't know they were in there. And then Manny got suspended. But, I played in the steroid era. I didn't realize when I was playing with the Rangers when I first came up that so many of my teammates were actually using steroids. I was clueless. One of my teammates' nickname was Juice, and I didn't know what they were talking about. That's how clueless I was. But I played with a lot of guys back in the early 90s on the Texas Rangers. I'm not going to name any names. You guys can look at those rosters.
Rafael Palmeiro.
A lot of guys that, we're using. But, I think guys are always going to try and find an advantage. It's been happening forever. There's rumors of guys 15 years ago on a certain team that were all using HGH, and back then they weren't testing for it. You just got to be smarter, and Fernando, for whatever reason, he doesn't seem to make good decisions. And it's really sad because the dude is an incredible player. There's not much he can't do on a baseball field. And, as far as a ringworm, I actually got a ringworm playing winter ball in Venezuela. And apparently the reason was, at least what they thought was, after the game, they didn't trust us with our hats. So they would take our hats and put them in this box. We'd show up at the field the next day and they give us our hats back. And the hats were disgusting and sweaty and dirty. And I had this hat for the whole season. And all of a sudden I got this big C on my forehead, and they said it was a ringworm. It hurt, itched like hell, looked like hell. I had put like a big Band-Aid on my forehead. But the treatment for that was just this topical cream they give me, almost like a Neosporin, and I put it on there. I didn't have to ingest anything to get rid of it.
I got it right here. I lived in North Carolina, and the people that I rented from had outdoor cats that I would pet. And that's where one was not very friendly. And that's where they figure I got it from. Same thing. It was a topical cream. And I don't even think I used it for that long. Like, it cleared it right up, like it was gone.
Yeah. Maybe that, what did he test positive for?
Clobazole. Which is a derivative of testosterone.
Yeah. Well, maybe the clostebol is like the cream and the clear that the boys from the Balco, right? There's some steroids that Barry Bonds and those guys use that you didn't ingest, you just rubbed it on your skin or whatever. Right. Maybe it's like that type of deal. I don't know. I'm guessing.
So as a teammate, do you just forgive them? What do they need to, like, what does Tatis need to do, who is under contract, like Garth said, till 2034? Like, he is the backbone of this team. If you're Manny Machado and you're his teammate for the next 8 years, like, do you just forgive and forget?
Yeah, I usually do with your teammates, but he's got a lot of butt kissing to do in the next 3 months, in my opinion, because he just hurt that team's chances of advancing. Not that they can't still do it or won't do it, but you take a guy like that out of your lineup when you're making a playoff push, man, you just can't replace those type of players. And so how many of those guys on that roster right now won't be on the Padres next year, or some might not even be in the game. And so he just hurt all of their chances. It's such a selfish thing to do of making the playoffs.
Did we have anything to add, anybody, on the Tatis situation?
Well, a few people are talking like, because like it's not deniable. He has a Hall of Fame talent. Like if he played 15 years to his capability, he would probably be a Hall of Fame player. But like as the voters have shown, like those guys aren't getting in. So imagine being his age and that talented and knowing that like you're never going to be accepted into that fraternity. I mean, unless you gain 100 pounds, switch to DH and play in Fenway, then
your first ballot then.
Yeah, first ballot. Yeah.
Like,
but like,
okay,
the rest of his career is like just gonna be tainted.
So we are going to go into some topics here that you all brought to the table first. But before we do that, I did want to really quickly touch on Marcus Semien. Now, I've got a story about Justin Smoke before we get into this, because Edwin Encarnacion obviously goes off to Cleveland. Justin Smoke becomes the full-time first base, and Pat and I are at a show, and I remember just talking to him about, oh man, like Justin Smoke, like how can he replace what Edwin is doing? And Pat, being the level-headed man that he is, was like, whoa. Look at Smoke's numbers. If you give him some playing time and give him some runway, we're going to be just fine. And that turned out to be very true. And if you look at Marcus Semien and what he did in Texas in April and May, it was gross. It was gross. His numbers were brutal. He had 1 home run. But since then, he has hit 16 home runs in June, July, and the beginning of August here, which is, without April, May, a 40 home run pace. And even counting April and May in this, he's still on pace for 30. Sometimes you just give up on guys too soon. In your opinion, Connor, how much runway does a guy deserve? And Kikuchi's already gone over that runway, right?
Well, yes, that don't even try to debate that. But it's very dependent on the player, because in Marcus Semien's case, he came off arguably the best season a second baseman's ever had hitting, and he got the contract from Texas. He was expected to be, along with him and Seager, one of the best middle infields in baseball. And then it took him nearly 2 months to get a single home run. Like it's very dependent. Like if you look at, like he's a 31-year-old doing this. Like it took him that long. But then if you look at, on the flip side, if you look at like a rookie that just comes up, you give them more of a leash because they're a rookie, not someone who's been in the league for 6-7 years and gotten all the money. Like, but in Semien's case, the hitting is back to where it was last year, but his fielding is back to what it was in 2020. He's as far as analytic stuff goes, he's in the 30th percentile for outs above average, where he was in the 90th last year. Like he's completely dropped off as far as fielding goes and got some of the power back. So it's a give and take with him again.
So Raimel Tapia is another good example of a guy who changed scenery, right? Made adjustments to his swing, took some time to find it, and now is doing really well. So Jeff, out of curiosity, how much time does it take a hitter to make an adjustment and see the fruits of that labor? Because sometimes just changing your swing is a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah, it's just different for every guy. Not everybody has the luxury of an 8-year contract to where it doesn't really matter what you do. They're not going to send you down, or that they can't just dump you and eat $160 million. I was never really in the position to, eventually it'll work out. And I was like panicked, like I got to figure this shit out today, because tomorrow they might send me out of here. So it's just different for guys. And I think now, unfortunately, we see so many guys that have these huge contracts that all of a sudden, man, these guys forget how to play. And I don't understand it. And I've seen when I was playing, if a guy was a 275 career hitter, if he's hitting 240, that sucks. I mean, this is not him. There's a reason he's hit 275 for 8 years. He's a 275 hitter. But now you see it where these guys just fall off a cliff, and these guys would go from being 260 hitters to 160. And for a whole year. And I don't even understand that. I had The very worst year of my career, unfortunately, was when I was with the Blue Jays because I was hurt. I had surgery in spring training. I got 4 games of spring training, and I sucked I sucked basically the whole season, in my opinion, because I hit 246. And my career average was 290. So I felt like it was such a disappointment. And yet my 246, the worst I ever hit in the major leagues, is still better than the major league batting average across baseball. 46, so.
All right, Pat. There we go. Problem solved. Thanks for that, Jeff. Connor, out of curiosity.
Thanks for that, Jeff. Connor, out of curiosity.
Okay. So
Thanks.
we've got somebody's replay is on. Everyone can hear that, right? I'm not going crazy here.
Yeah.
I blame Pat. Let's go, McDonald. Get it together.
Got your volume on there, Pat? There we go. Now he's back. All right. Did we have anyone, Jen, what are your thoughts on maybe giving up on a guy too soon? Is this something that you've got any input to give on?
I mean, we've seen guys at a later stage in their career have breakout seasons that you wouldn't expect, right? Jose Bautista. Or guys who, with the example of Marcus Semien, had this great season, goes to a new team, took a while to get going, right? I think it's really easy to get frustrated with a player. I don't know if that necessarily means you've given up on a player.
Yeah.
And I think if you're looking at it, it's different if you're looking at it as a fan versus if you are somebody within the organization who is able to maybe look at some of those other factors that a fan wouldn't see, tweaks that are being made, right? Adjustments that are being asked. Like Kikuchi's terrible. We're not gonna say that he isn't, right? But they have asked him to make so many adjustments as well that that's a lot of noise going on in his head. And so when you come, it doesn't surprise me necessarily that he is having such a terrible season, right? And so, if you look at something like that from the organization point of view, they're seeing him doing his side sessions. They're seeing him doing whatever, and whether or not they trust in him or they're just throwing him out there because they have no one else, that's their little secret, I suppose. But it's, if you look at a hitter and you can see what he's doing in the cage and you can see the work that is going into it, you give that leeway because the preparation that's going into it and you're trusting that process that the results are going to come, especially if they have a track record like a Marcus Semien, let's say, for example. So, but from a fan point of view, when fans are expressing frustration, that doesn't necessarily mean that they've given up. It's just that they're reacting to what they're seeing. And we know that fans can be very emotional.
Oh, I mean,
not me. I'm dead inside, but everyone else.
Oh, I don't even blame Rangers fans. I mean, to watch that kind of money be dished out for a guy and then to watch zero production for 2 complete months. It is, I always cheer for the guy. Like, I'm glad to see him back on track, which is great. My biggest fear is that Yusei Kikuchi gets bought out and then come 2024 is being paid $2 million and is the ace of the Tampa Bay Rays. That would kill me.
I don't think you need to worry about that. Just because kind of my line of thinking with, how much leeway or, how long a leash do you give a player? There's so many things as someone who never even, the closest I sniffed to Major League Baseball was I lived across the street from the Sky Dome. So
right.
Huge grain of salt here. But there, whether it's, in business or in comedy, pretty well every facet of life, in my opinion, comes down to a number of things. So Kikuchi does not have a good Major League Baseball track record. He doesn't. I don't know his career ERA. I would guess it's just under 5, but who knows?
I think it's mid-4s. I could be mistaken.
Yeah, so that's not very good.
So get it together, Pat.
I'm having so many technical issues here, Scott. I live out in the country now. It's a whole fucking thing. So anyway, my point though is it depends on so many things. Is this guy a rookie, or is this his second or third year, or has this guy been playing for 8 years? He's 30 years old, no health problems. With a guy like Kikuchi, I don't know all of the players' association, like what's in the CBA essentially. Can he be sent down without being injured to figure it out? Or like, what is he, the long man in the bullpen? How do you let him figure that out in a game situation without having it impact the major league team's win-loss record?
It almost has to be an off-season thing, right?
And I mean, to sign the guy, I know that starting pitching was a glaring need for this team going into this year. Well, we're 2/3 of the way through. It still is a glaring need. So that really sucks. But to give the guy, I think it was like 3 years, $36 million, if I'm not mistaken. That was not a signing I was excited about. And it turns out I know a thing or two, I guess, sometimes. What the hell's going on there?
A lot of people weren't happy about it at the time, and it obviously seems like a gross miscalculation on the part of the front office at this point.
Yeah.
Yep.
It almost felt a little bit like hubris. Like they're like, we fixed Robbie Ray, so give us any lefty who throws 98. Like
Jay's Twitter was all about like, well, Pete Walker's just gonna fix him. Pete Walker is gonna wave his fucking magic pitching wand, and like, no, he did a good job with Robbie Ray, and he did an okay job with Steven Matz.
Yeah,
like our bullpen, like he was a pitching coach for Tyler Chatwood. You know what I mean? Like, you can only like look at Pete Walker in the sense that like, yeah, he was good for these pitchers, but you still have to look at the other pitchers that he is a pitching coach for.
So we can't just tunnel vision on the wins.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. But everybody was like, "Oh, Pete Walker will fix him. No big deal. 36 million, peanuts." Like that was a lot of the sentiment that I saw online during that signing. So
the only good thing about that signing is that if I'm not mistaken, it's front loaded. He's making the most
16.
money this year.
He's making 16 this year and then 10 and 10.
16 million for 3 quality starts in mid-August.
Yeah.
Like
He still has time to fit in another one.
I pray it's tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I got one real quick. So, Matt Carpenter was a free agent this year. He signs with the Texas Rangers. He spends about, I don't know, 2-3 months, I guess 2.5 months in AA and AAA for the Texas Rangers, and they just released him. He's not good enough to play for the Texas Rangers, who are, 12 games under 500. He goes right to New York, and he's batting third for the freaking Yankees.
Wow.
He's got 1,100 OPS. He's got 15 homers and 130 at-bats. I mean, how does that happen?
It's the mustache, Jeff.
And a smooth
The mustache, baby.
Yeah.
It's like this guy, he was having a heck of a career, and then all of a sudden he just forgot how to hit in St. Louis, and he was horrible. He was hitting under 200, hitting 160. They couldn't get rid of him quick enough. He got signed for the Rangers, and I guess he got with a hitting guru, and I don't understand why the Rangers wouldn't have at least given him somewhat of a shot. And then he goes to the Yankees like they need another freaking bat in the lineup. It's just the Yankees just take every team's best hitter and put him on the Yankees.
That's a
How do
great
they not
example.
win? How do you
That's
not
a great
win with
example,
that lineup? They took LeMahieu from Colorado. They took Giancarlo from Miami. They took Donaldson from Atlanta. And he's not the same guy he was for the Blue Jays. But it's like, I mean, how many hitters do these guys need?
Don't forget Rizzo from the Cubs.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt Carpenter is such a great story, too, because there's so much. It's hard not to respect a guy who's 36 years old with the baseball acumen and the track record that he has, who is prepared to go play in the Texas Rangers minor league system. Good for him. He went against the Yankees every time, but
he went to TCU. So, and I'm pretty sure he's from Texas. So he's probably like, I'll give it one more shot. close to home, and if it doesn't work out, I can just hop in my car and drive home. And so I know that he lives like here in Fort Worth, Texas. So it's not like he was, taking a job to go play and, the Seattle Mariners and the, 1,800 miles away from home. So he was home, but to his credit, he turned it around. Unfortunately, he got hurt about a week ago, but what a story.
Yeah. Good on the Yankees for recognizing that he can still play. There were 29 other teams that probably could have used a bat like that. We are talking about the New York Yankees leading the American League right now, and he fits into the 3-hole. All right. We all brought a topic to the table, so we're going to get into some of these now that we're over the halfway point of the show. Jen, let's start with you. What did you bring for topics?
I brought 4.
Okay.
I'm going to give you, I always do this. I like to be, I'm a teacher. I am over prepared. So I'm going to give you 2 and you can answer or whichever one you want to. Okay. Number 1, have you, now that we're a month into it, has there been any noticeable difference in managerial style between Schneider and Montoyo? So that's number 1. Number 2, Ken Giles has elected free agency. Would you try to sign him? Either topic.
I think it goes back to what we were talking about regarding Ken Giles. It goes back to what we were talking about, how long a leash do you give a guy? Does Ken Giles have a track record? Yes, he does. He was exceptional in his short time with the Jays, and before that, he's been injured. So what do? You sign him to a minor league deal. Very low risk, very high reward, especially given how, we have some excellent bullpen pieces. We have some other pieces that, I might want to throw out on the curb for the garbage truck tomorrow morning. So you can never have too many good arms, in my opinion. So I'd say give him $100,000, minor league deal, see what happens. But why? It's not like he's Osuna, the guy he was traded for. That guy you don't touch with a 10-foot pole. But why not take a chance on him?
Yeah, Ken Giles is probably not the Ken, throwing 100 anymore. I think when he was playing this year, he was maybe 95, 96 averaging with his fastball. So it's not a 100 anymore, but he'd be an option. Like Pat was saying, he'd be an option for them. And as far as the the managerial differences, they run 1,000 times more to their detriment and to success. And the willingness, one thing I do like is the willingness to use Romano for more than 1 inning. Because Charlie didn't want to do that if his life depended on it. But yesterday, Jimmy Garcia got the 2 outs, then gave up the double, and he immediately went, "All right, Jordan, you're in. I don't care if there's 2 outs in the 8th inning, you're in." And he got it. But if that was Charlie, I think I have faith in Jimmy. Jimmy's been great, but I don't think he might not get through that. The game gets tied, and then Romano doesn't really get to be used in a save situation at that point. So I'd say Schneider's been better than Montoyo, but it's not leaps and bounds better. He was not going to be the reason that this team would go on a phenomenal run and end up with 100 wins.
Yeah, I saw a stat that Romano's had 5 games this year where he's pitched more than 1 inning, and 4 of them have been with John Schneider. Mm-hmm. So, that's big. And like Connor said, what happens, if Jimmy gives up another bloop single and the game's tied, then Romano doesn't even sniff the game. So yeah, he's willing to use our best players when they need to be used. And Ken Giles, 100% sign him, get him a few outings in AAA, see what he's got left. No harm, no foul. If he gets to AAA and he gets pounded, whatever. It's not a huge gamble. And, our pitching is pretty thin. So why not?
I also like the use of Romano as well under Schneider. And I do like the running game. I question when they have 18 outfielders on the team, that Cavan Biggio is playing right field today. I did question that decision, and I do question, was it Friday with Barrios? If sometimes I think you just need to let a guy wear it. When I think they used up 5 relievers in that game, and they were not going to win that game. They just simply were not going to win that game. Yeah. And I kind of question sort of burning the pen at that point, knowing what you had coming up. So I almost think it's, maybe Schneider's doing some more interesting things, but when it comes to number of games won over the course of a season, I don't know that there's any discernible difference there. Ken Giles, yes, absolutely. Take the flyer.
Yeah, that was the head scratcher today, because you have Whit Merrifield, the guy who's played right field as much as he played second base in his career, and he's been, I'm not going to say amazing in right field, but he's been good. And you have Cavan Biggio, this has arguably been his best defensive season at second base, like in the infield, and you play him in right field. I mean, he had that one great play to save Phelps from probably an inside the park home run earlier, but then he also had the play where he didn't run to the ball and then he gave up a double. So it was a head scratcher, but it'll wash out, I guess.
Yeah.
Anything to add, gang, on Jen's topic at all? All right, let's move on. Pat, what do you got for us for topic?
I guess it would just be kind of broad, so really open to however you wish to interpret it. Obviously, this team has a lot of strengths, and it has some very glaring needs or weaknesses. So currently, the Jays are in position for wildcard spot, but what do you think is a realistic solution or a realistic thing that needs to happen or should happen in order for them to make the playoffs and make a playoff run?
Aside from getting into the DeLorean and going back to the trade deadline?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
I'll jump in real quick here. Because I think you bottom line can't back off Manoah. You need him to continue to produce the way he's producing. You need him to continue to be that big game pitcher. You need Gausman to continue to look like he has post All-Star game. You need another starter to step up. I don't give a shit who it is. I think Ross Stripling also needs to come back healthy. He needs to play the rest of this year. Or if Ross Stripling is out longer than it looks like he is, knock on all the wood and all that stuff. But this team is in some real big trouble. Because right now they're
pitching Wednesday.
Yeah, he's back Wednesday.
He is back Wednesday. So as long as that,
Small thing. I don't get, we all, like, going back on Barrios for half a second, we all get he's bad on the road. Stripling and Barrios were lined up on the same day to pitch. And Schneider decides to put Barrios on the road against the Yankees and not at home against the Orioles. But it's neither here nor there. But
no,
I think one thing the Jays can do is put out their best lineup every day. Like no, seriously, every day when I look on Twitter and the Jays like announce their lineups, like there's maybe 1 out of every 8 games where I'm just like, yeah, that's the team. That's the team that should be hitting. But then like the next day, there's an off day for this guy, and these 2 guys are, man, what are we doing? Like, play our best players.
The worst part about it is that they can't put out their best lineup because Springer cannot be in the lineup. And that's the worst part of this.
Yeah.
And Springer is due to come off the IL, or he's available to come off the IL tomorrow. I know that he's been rehabbing and hitting in a cage and supposedly running the bases and all that stuff they always tell us about George Springer, and that he should be ready to come back. Can this team make a run without George Springer?
No.
Can they make a run if Jose Barrios continues to pitch the way he did the other night?
Yeah, no.
Right? So you can pick and choose here. any number of guys or directions. And, you know, this goes back to what we said earlier about waiting on, you know, multiple things to click together all at the same time. And it's August freaking 14th. And we're still having this conversation. That to me is the most frustrating aspect of all of this. I think the biggest weakness on the team, if you're just looking at a bigger picture, since Pat said you could kind of go in different directions, is that so many of the guys are so similar. Like their weaknesses are similar at the plate, for example, right? And so it can become easy to maybe exploit those weaknesses.
Yeah.
Watching that Guardians series, it's sure hard not to like that Cleveland team. Like, I just like the way they play baseball. They're a fun team to watch. They put the bat on the ball. They run the bases very well. They're not running into this. They're not as aggressive as Toronto is on the base path, but they're also not running into outs. Their pitching is phenomenal. The bullpen, like Emmanuel Clace is.
Speaking of the bullpen, they didn't have one of their better relievers this weekend either.
Yeah.
James Karinchak. He didn't come to Toronto, and he's one of their better relievers. It's ridiculous what they have over there.
All right. Jeff, what topic did you bring to the table today for us?
I didn't know I was supposed to bring a topic.
Neither did I, Jeff. I just kind of off the dome.
Take one of Jen's 8. Like
My topic is Yingling. It's come to Texas, and I'm really very happy about it. No, I guess my topic will be, what's happened in Major League Baseball in the last week that you've never seen before. Okay. The Pittsburgh Pirates game, guy was running to third base and slid head first, and his cell phone popped out of his fucking pocket. And his manager said, he's just a young kid. He made a mistake. He's 23 years old, right? He has his cell phone in his back pocket in a Major League Baseball game on the field. And we're going to say, he's just a young kid. He just made a mistake. The other thing I noticed this week that I've never seen, and apparently it's happened before, but in the Texas Rangers Houston Astros game, extra innings, where you put the invisible man on second to start the game, which is a complete embarrassment. The Rangers scored 5 runs in the top of the 10th, and they got a 5-run lead and start the bottom of the 10th, and Alex Bregman made the last out of the night, so he starts the inning at second base, and he's apparently known as being one of the better base runners at stealing signs or picking up location and relaying it to the batter. So with a 5-run lead, with 1 inning to go, instead of pitching to the hitter, the Rangers intentionally balked Bregman to third base so that he would not be able to give up the signs to the hitter just in case the guy hit a 2-run home run and they'd still be behind by 3 runs. And to me, that is just like, first, I think it's embarrassing. It's like we concede that we have no way of disguising our signs. You're just too good. And we have to, only way we can combat that is by balking you to third base.
Well, up by 5.
Yeah.
Up by 5 runs.
Even up by 1 or 2, though. It's like I played baseball from probably from age 6 into my early 30s. Varying levels of competition. But nowhere even close to major, probably about 50 steps below Major League Baseball. I pitched from, age 12 onward, starting pitcher 99% of the time. Believe it or not, I'm not a fucking rocket scientist. No one ever. Yeah, well, there you go. No one ever stole a sign ever, not once. So I'm not Alan Turing over here fucking doing genius shit. It's just this, that's it. That's all you got to do. So if your signs are getting stolen and you're a Major League catcher or Major League pitcher, I don't know. Maybe that's why they have the little Bluetooth
That's
thing.
the thing.
I was about to say
wrap
that.
my head around. I'm like, they have PitchCom.
Well,
They
PitchCom is
literally-
bullshit too, though.
No, they were using PitchCom.
What the fuck? Then?
That makes
See,
it 10
like,
times.
I
That
don't
makes it 1,000 times
understand it.
worse.
That's
Yeah.
stupid.
Exactly.
No.
Well, and we used to do this back when I played. Stealing signs is part of the game, and it's a huge part of the game. And unfortunately, the Astros fucked that up for everybody. Okay, we all know that. Now everybody is paranoid. There's cameras everywhere. Who's doing this? Buzzers. I mean, it really. 5 years of that crap. It's gotten worse and worse and worse. But we had a way to relay signs. As if you're a base runner on second base, you touch the top of your helmet and you let the hitter know that you have the signs, or you can give location. That's it. Okay. So if I my first step when I'm taking my lead is with my lead foot, that means it's that side of the plate. If it's with my inside foot, it's on that side of the plate. If I turn my head, it's a breaking ball. If I look straight, it's a fastball. So we had ways of doing that, but you had to be smart enough to disguise it, because if they knew you were doing it, somebody's getting drilled. Okay. I mean, when I was playing for the Blue Jays, Ryan Franklin was pitching for the Mariners, and somebody was at second base giving the signs. I forget who it was. And he walked halfway to the second base and said, "Quit giving the effing signs, or somebody's getting smoked." And that's the way you handled it back then, is somebody, sent a message with a pitch and then it was over or whatever. But the Rangers were using whatever it's called, the Quest Tech, whatever that crap is, the earpiece thing. So, where they put the glove over their hands. So, somebody's probably watching which button they push. So they actually have to put a glove over it in case there's a satellite looking down, and press the 1, 2, 3, or 4. And it says that, the pitch in the pitcher's ear, and they still balked him to third base because they were so worried he was going to give location.
Times have changed, eh, Jeff? Back when you were playing, they'd hit the guy for stealing signs, and now they're like, please take third base.
Yeah, we should tell them. It's like, hey, man, you do that again, you're getting smoked. I did that when I played with the Red Sox, and I'm sorry taking up so much time, but
No.
John Wasden was just came over to the Red Sox, and I'd been there a little while, and we're playing the White Sox in Fenway, and they accidentally hit John Valentin with a pitch in his wrist, and it broke his wrist. I mean, it was clearly unintentional, but it didn't matter. You hurt our guy. Somebody's going down on your team. And I went up to John Wasden in the dugout, and I said, I just walked right up to him. I said, if you get the first two dudes out, I said, smoke this next dude. And he goes, all right. And I didn't know you never know when you tell somebody to do that if they're going to actually follow through. Okay. But it's a way to earn your teammates' respect by sticking up for your teammate. And so sure enough, he gets the first two guys out, and I'm like, all right, let's see what he's made of right here. And Ron Karkovice comes up, the nicest guy in the world, backup catcher. And the first pitch, he smokes him right in the freaking ribs. And he hit him so solid that the ball just fell straight to the ground, and Karkovice went, oh, and went to first base. And it was over. It was over. They knew why we did it. They knew we were going to do it, and it was forgotten. Now we moved on. And we don't see that in baseball anymore because they're not allowed to do that, because the umpires step in and they don't let the players police the game. And I think that's really hurting the game right now.
All good stuff. Connor, what do you got for us on topics, bud?
Okay, it's going to sound ridiculous when I say what my topic is. If we're going, like a lot of people, a lot of people in the fan base, they like to pick on certain players for not doing well. And it's just been a thing. It's always guys on the fringes. It's never the main people. And one person that we don't talk about enough, unless it's Garth brought it up a couple podcasts ago, Bo Bichette. Garth, we were talking.
No, you're gonna fucking steal my topic. So go ahead.
No, okay. Well, we can share this one. If we're going based off of expectations at the beginning of the season and where we thought each individual player would be, could you guys explain to me how Bo Bichette is better than Cavan Biggio this season as far as expectations?
Okay. All right. I like literally an hour before the podcast. I tweeted that this season, Cavan Biggio is a better major league player than Bo Bichette.
Garth, that's the reason I took the topic, is because you tweeted that out.
Like, I'm terrified to even open Twitter after this is over, because like 2 hours of not checking Twitter, like people were going
check for you.
People were going mental about it. And they're like, well, Bo did this and Bo did, and I'm like, yeah, but that was last season. Okay, this season, I got some notes. Bo Bichette has a 1.4 WAR, B-WAR, with a 106 OPS plus. He has 458 at bats, and I know WAR brings in like defense as well, like, but it's 1.4 and 458 at bats. Cavan has a 1.1 WAR with a 103 OPS. He only has 172 at bats. So in about a third or so, like, or, you know, ballparked it like 2.5 times more plate appearances. Bo only has 0.3 more WAR. Their OPS plus is really close, 103 and 106. So it's kind of a wash. Biggio this season has actually been a little bit better defensively than Bo. So yeah, this season, Cavan Biggio on a rate basis is a better MLB player than Bo Bichette. And people lost their goddamn minds on Twitter. I got about 4 DMs like cursing me. And I'm like,
I was three of those.
I am literally just like giving you numbers and showing that, like, on a per at bat, a rate stat, Cavan Biggio is a better player this season. And yes, I'm not saying Cavan is a better player than Bo. I'm not saying that he's gonna have a better career. I just said this season. And like a few weeks ago when I brought up the question, is Bo Bichette good? Everybody's like, well, fuck, yeah, of course he is. He's Bo Bichette. But he is like the definition.
That's a great imitation of me, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But Bo Bichette this season is the definition of an average Major League Baseball player. He, like, statistically, you cannot get a closer to an average baseball player. So, yeah, thank you, Connor.
No.
I'm sorry to go nuts about your topic, but like that was my topic.
Yeah, because the reason I brought it up is because you tweeted that out, and I had to jump on the bandwagon, because as much as good or as bad as Cavan Biggio will ever be, I will be a fan of his for some odd reason. Like, no matter how good or bad he does, I'll always be a fan. He's improved drastically on defense. I think I could be been reading this wrong. He has a similar defensive run saved at first base to Vlad this year. Like, he's been
great wherever they play him.
Other than right field.
Other than right field. But I mean, like, why is he even playing that?
Yeah, like
my biggest frustration this year with Bichette is, and we touched it off the top of the show here. Jeff was talking about just players' inability to adjust, and like, Bichette is like the one guy on this team that if you go through this lineup and you're like, who should be reevaluating what they're doing? He's like the top of the list. But he goes out there time and time again, swinging out of his shoes. And I just don't understand why, when you look at his numbers and look at what he did last year in comparison to what he's done in the first 110 games of this season, why you wouldn't be looking for ways to adjust.
Can't hit the fastball this year. That's the big difference.
Pitchers have adjusted. Like you're saying, Scott, why hasn't he made adjustments?
Yes, and that's
you're right though, because it's not like he hasn't been hitting well or playing at the level he did last year for the last 3 or 4 weeks. This is a season-long issue, and I don't get to watch games nearly as much as I would like to, because of all the women banging on my door night and day. It gets distracting, but it seems as though every other game that I watch, he's not making the throw from short. He's either bouncing it and Vladdy has to bail him out by digging one out of the dirt, or he throws it and it's just not possible to even get a glove on it. So I don't know that shortstop is where he should be long term, and I'm not the first to say that, but I didn't really feel that way until all of the throwing miscues that I've seen this year.
Well, it's similar to like when the Yankees had A-Rod and they left Jeter at shortstop. Like, we have a better shortstop defensively than Bo Bichette. The only problem is he plays second base. You know, like Espinal is a much better fielding shortstop. But like, I don't know why they're so adverse to, like, I don't know. It's like, why does he deserve that shortstop spot when, you know, he's a league average hitter and he's below average defensively? Like, why does he keep getting run out at only shortstop? You know, I don't know.
His pedigree, right? It's his pedigree. It's the fact that he came up as a star, all the fanfare. I just really think that has a lot to play.
But do you think, like, after this season, like the front office needs to reevaluate their
after this season,
what are we doing with Bo Bichette? Yeah.
And the thing is, if you can move Vladdy from third to first, and Vlad, obviously very small sample size for both. They've both been good career-wise, but Vlad is twice the player statistically. They're on different levels. Why can you then not move Bichette to second base? It just, I don't know. Like, Jeff, what do you foresee, not this specific scenario, but like, what do you foresee the challenges, just given that you were just a little bit better at baseball than me? What do you see the challenges?
That's debatable, man. You're just a little bit better at comedy than me too. So
not anymore. I haven't done it in 2 years.
Well, I mean,
difficulty in shifting from, say, short to second, and what does that look like?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of great players over the years that have moved positions. Michael Young went from short to second to third to first. He was a pretty good player. Cal Ripken went from short to third. John Valentin, he got pushed from short to third when Nomar came up. So, hey, man, if the guy's better, sorry, you're moving. And I think, Bichette came up with all the hype. Obviously, his daddy was a great player. And I'm not saying he still can't be a great player, but when I'm looking at his numbers, and I noticed this early in the year, it's really funny that it came up tonight. How many elite hitters in the major leagues have a 300 on base percentage?
Yep.
I would say none. Okay. If you walk, 20 times and strike out 120 times, you're not an elite hitter in my mind. Okay. I mean, and if you look at his career on base percentage, is 330. So he's up there hacking, and and the reason he does that is because they allow him to do that. Okay. Nobody's going to say anything to him. Say, listen, dude, you might hit 30 bombs, but you have 650 other at-bats during the year. You can't just go up there wailing at everything. We need you to get on base. We need a higher on base percentage. Like Jan had mentioned earlier, you got to make some adjustments, shorten up at 2 strikes. But for me, a 300 on base percentage, that's pathetic in the major leagues. I mean, you're a backup player. I think mine was 350, and I wasn't worth a shit, right? And now he's a superstar. He plays shortstop, hits in the middle of the lineup for the Blue Jays, and they talk about him like he's a superstar.
I mean, it took them forever to move him out of the 2-hole.
Yes.
Yeah.
It took a whole new manager.
I have his Baseball Savant page open right now. And I mean, okay, when he hits the ball hard. Cool. But that's when he hits the ball, right? His walk percentage is in the 17th percentile, strikeout, 29th percentile, chase rate, oh my God, the 10th percentile in the league. Those are some ugly numbers. And between that and the defensive shortcomings at shortstop, this goes back to that earlier conversation about how much rope do you give a guy, right? He's been given an awful lot of rope. Some of that has to do, I suppose, with his pedigree. Some of that has to do with the fact that he came up with Vlad and they were sort of packaged together as these bright, shining stars of the future around whom the team would be built. And one, I would say, has lived up to those expectations and the other not as much. to this point. And it is absolutely on the team to say to him, dude, we need to move you to a different position, right? Or dude, you need to stop doing X at the plate. And you're going to start working on this in the cage tonight. I don't know how all of this works.
I think to slight defense of Bichette, I think he's said in the past that he's willing to move positions. They just haven't yet. They just haven't moved him, because they haven't had a big enough reason to move him off a shortstop. Even though Santiago Espinal has been the better defensive shortstop, they haven't had a big enough. If Espinal was a better hitter, I'd say they'd be more inclined to do it. But since Bo still only 24, he's been a shortstop his whole life. They haven't found a big enough reason to move him off.
I could think of a good reason.
Other than the throws.
Other than he's shitty at it? Yeah.
Other than he's shitty at it, but in their eyes, he's not.
But if you think about it, it's in the team's best interest to move him financially from shortstop. That's a premium position. So instead of paying him, I'm just making up numbers here. Instead of paying him $30 million a year, assuming that he can find a way to get on base more. So instead of 30, well, then you're paying him maybe $22 million a year, which I know to you, Scott, $8 million doesn't matter. But that's a whole other starting, back of the rotation starter or solid bullpen arm or something like that. So, I mean, there are a number of good reasons to pull the trigger, in my opinion.
And Pat, we have an example. We have a real recent example of someone that moved from shortstop and got extremely better. Marcus Semien in 2021.
Yep.
They moved him to second base because they didn't want to move Bo, but it turned out being, I guess, the right decision. Marcus had the best season a second baseman's ever had and was a Gold Glover.
Mm-hmm.
There's recent examples for this front office to see that if you can find a way to move Bo off of second base or shortstop, or move him to second base, and we could go into this into detail. If you can find a shortstop in the offseason that's good at fielding, you can move Bo off of short and put him at second base and have that guy there, and the team immediately becomes 1,000 times better, I think.
What I really find interesting about this organization's, I mean, for lack of a better word, inability to move Bo to this point, who's really taking the bullet here is Matt Chapman, who his defensive numbers are the worst of his career, right? Like his defensive metrics, they don't like him. But you watch Matt Chapman play third base and you're like, okay, I don't need analytics to tell me that this guy's fucking awesome, right? So I think that just Bo being there is affecting that whole left side of the infield. I don't know. All right. Anything else to add on that one? We'll get into our final topic here before we go around the horn and see what all of you are up to. Nothing? All right. So the topic I wanted to talk about was, I actually just read a really interesting article about Aaron Judge looking like the front runner for most valuable player in the AL. And I found it very interesting for a few reasons. Number one, I would say it's deserving, as much as I hate the Yankees and I'm not a Judge fan myself, what he is doing with this home run race, and he's in the running to break the American League record for home runs, which is incredibly impressive. He's at 46 right now. He has been the engine of that Yankees offense. But also, as a Jays fan, it's tough to accept the fact that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. chased a Triple Crown last year and didn't even get one first place vote. Ohtani swept it. And you know what? I got to give it to him. He probably should have swept it. Like, Ohtani, incredible at the plate, incredible pitching, and it's even better this year. In your opinion, does Aaron Judge have the lead in this MVP race, and should he be able to knock off a guy who is literally two elite players?
I think so. His OPS plus is over 200 this season. Like, he is twice as good as the average MLB hitter. Like, he's having an otherworldly season in a season where offense is down everywhere. I mean, like, Ohtani is special. He is going to be in the MVP race every season he does what he does. But if you took Aaron Judge off the Yankees, like, they would not be the same team. They would not be as good as they are. If you took Ohtani off the Angels, they'd still be a tire fire. Like, Ohtani, everything Ohtani has done has made no dent in how terrible that team is.
But that's the issue with baseball, though. Like, you have a basketball team and you bring in, in its prime Jordan, you're winning 30 more games than you did your before.
I get that, but the voters look at, like, they're like, holy shit, the Yankees are going to have one of the top 2 records in the AL. Aaron Judge is head and shoulders their best player. Like, he is so much, like, he's just dominating. Like, Ohtani's numbers are ridiculous. Like, he has a 151 ERA plus. Like, pitching, he is one of the 5 best starters in baseball in the American League right now. Plus, he's probably one of the top 10 hitters. But it's
that's
just
not enough.
I don't think it's enough this year. I don't think it is, because the Angels are so bad. Like, and the Yankees are just so good. So, I don't know.
Jeff, go ahead. Let's hear what you have.
It's not Ohtani's fault the Angels are bad.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, and a huge Aaron Judge fan. I don't really like his hitting coach. He's kind of a jackass. But you take Aaron Judge off the Yankees, they're still in first place. There's no doubt. They have an all-star lineup. And look at their rotation. They have like 5 guys in the top 20 ERA in American League in their starting rotation on one team. And I don't want to take anything away from what Aaron Judge is doing. If I had to pick today, I would probably pick Aaron Judge because, it's incredible what he's doing. Plus, he seems to be a freaking first-class dude. And, if anybody should be the next captain of the Yankees, it should be Aaron Judge. And I'm watching The Captain, by the way, and it's freaking awesome. I'm in episode 2 on the bench, in case you're wondering. But, brief cameo.
You're like, no spoilers. Yeah.
Yeah, but when it comes to Ohtani, man, we've never seen anybody like this. Babe Ruth wasn't like this. Babe Ruth was barely a decent pitcher, and he wasn't hitting and pitching at the same time, I don't think, like at this level. And Ohtani's doing it in a time where everybody says that, the players are better than they've ever been in the history of the game. And if this guy's doing all this stuff against this level of competition, he's got, it's obviously between those 2 guys. So I don't know, if you have a number 1 starter and a 4-hole hitter.
And the thing with Ohtani is they don't let him feel. Like, he's an amazing outfielder, but they just don't let him do that.
They don't want to hurt his arm.
I would more amazing.
Yeah. What if he played outfield and he threw his arm out? Then you lose your number 1 starter.
Yeah, or you twist your ankle or whatever. The many things.
And he's also doing this he doesn't have the benefit of 5 or 6 other stud hitters in the middle of his lineup like Judge has.
Yeah.
Judge hits like second for the Yankees. Since when is a freaking guy hit 46 home runs, a 2-hole hitter?
Marcus
Simeon. Going to say that
last year with
Marcus Simeon.
Right, Marcus Simeon. Yeah. If
No,
you
he's
put
got,
Ohtani,
I don't know who hits third for the Yankees. Is it Stanton?
It's
or
Rizzo. It's Rizzo,
Yeah.
typically.
Yeah,
Rizzo or Carpenter.
Yeah, and Rizzo, to me, Rizzo's not doing that well this year. He's hitting some for power, but he's hitting like 230. Dude hit 270 every year for the Cubs.
I think the big issue with even like it's not just a baseball thing, it's all sports is voter fatigue.
Yes.
Ohtani could have done it like 10 times better than what he did last year, and it would still he would probably still win MVP, but it wouldn't be unanimous again. Like it would be it's as close as it's probably ever going to be. Ohtani has been a much better pitcher than he was last year, but to Aaron Judge's credit, Aaron Judge already has as many home runs and RBI like today as Ohtani did last year. But then you also have to add in the fact that Ohtani is like we said, a top 5 pitcher in the American League. He probably should win MVP again, but it's the fact that he's done it. This is the second year he's doing it, and people are just like, "Oh, we've seen it. We know it's great. It's cool. Out of sight, out of mind.
Let's give it to somebody else."
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was, but there was one of the national writers who has an MVP vote. I heard interviewed last year who first of all said, Shohei Ohtani last year was by far and away the MVP, right? And they were asked, well, okay, if he continues to have seasons like this one, does this just mean that he's now the perennial MVP? And the writer said, yes. If he continues to perform at this level, and it continues therefore to be something we have never seen, absolutely, he is the MVP every season. So it will be really interesting, Connor, then to see, do writers back off of that a little bit in light of, there was an article I read today quoting various scouts who were essentially saying that Judge's season is in the top 10 offensive seasons, or right up there, in terms of top seasons ever. So it'll be really interesting to see if those writers who sort of said, yeah, Shohei Ohtani every year, as long as he continues to do what we just saw, it'll be interesting to see if they stick to that.
I'm also really curious if it has a lot to do with the fact that Aaron Judge is a Yankee. Like, if this was Christian Yelich on the Brewers, does anyone give a shit? Is this even a topic of conversation?
It also doesn't help that everything we hear about the Angel is Ohtani's great, but they should trade Mike Trout. They can never get anything in. And with Aaron Judge, it's the Yankees are on this historic pace. He's leading the charge. Finally, they're going to be successful in the playoffs. Probably not. But it's all about the narratives of the media coverage, because what we go back to last year, everyone's like, oh, Vladdy would be the MVP if Ohtani didn't exist, because what we're seeing here has never been done before. And this year it's, oh, the Angels should trade Ohtani. They're not good. So there's no positive force driving Ohtani's case.
It's a great narrative for MLB though.
Yeah,
right?
It is. Absolutely it is. Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap it up here. I just want to say thank you very much to all of you. This is the first time that I have led the long toss, and I appreciate you dealing with the bulkiness of this. I'm not as smooth as Adam was, but no, thank you all very much. We'll go around the horn here. You can tell us what you're working on, where people can find more of you, all of that good stuff. Let's start with our brand new to the show, Connor. What do you got going on, my dude?
Well, typically we have the Flight Deck podcast every Thursday, Friday, depending on scheduling. We're just working on that every once a week, just shooting the shit with me and my friend Brant. You can find it at the Flight Deck on every platform, the YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. We're on Twitter at the Flight Deck _ Flight Deck Pod on TikTok. We have those clips going out. Our most successful clip, ironically, is talking about how Bradley Zimmer is living the every man's dream, just to sit on the bench for the Toronto Blue Jays and make a lot of money. So, but yeah, it's
kind of my dream too. FYI.
Seriously, it's Bradley Zimmer probably is living the dream of most average people, and he probably won't anymore after George Brenner comes back, because they have Jackie Bradley Jr. now. But yeah, it's been a very fun thing. It's my first podcast I've ever done. We've done 5-6 episodes already, and don't plan to stop now.
Well, we wish you all the best, my man. I know you're always in the comments and always showing support here on the Walkoff, so appreciate it. Go check out the Flight Deck, everybody. Jeff Fry, thank you so much for coming back, my man. It was really good to have your insight here. I know that you're a brand new brand ambassador for a company. Fill us in on that.
Yeah, can you believe that? All started from making a stupid video and saying she gone. But yeah, I've been hired as a brand ambassador for a company called Rotor System USA. It's based out of Grapevine, Texas. We make batting tees and a few other things, a rotor, all manufactured in Italy. And it's a great product. We have this, it's compression molding. We have a batting tee that comes apart 3 pieces called the BT366, which has just been named the official batting tee of the Texas High School Baseball Coaches Association. which is over 3,200 schools in the state of Texas. And so it's pretty exciting. If you want to buy one of these betting tees, you go to rotosystemusa.com and type in code Jeff 15% off, and you get a 15% off on all of our products. I'm also about to start a new podcast next week. I believe I'm going to start. I've partnered with the guys from Coach and Kiernan on Twitter. Kevin Kiernan, Hall of Fame writer for 40-something years. They've asked me if I wanted to start a new podcast, and I agreed. And next week, I believe, we'll start. My first guest is none other than that crazy relief pitcher from the Atlanta Braves back in the day, Mr. John Rocker.
Oh, boy.
You have to become friends with us, so make sure you don't let your kids listen. It's sure to be entertaining. And other than that, not doing a whole lot else, playing a little golf, just trying to keep educating parents to be, use their best judgment when hiring hitting coaches and pitching coaches for their kids, because we all know there's a lot of nonsense out there.
I do love watching you on Twitter, my man, because if there's ever a hitting instructor out there who's telling you to be on a yoga ball swinging a rope, you're the first one to be like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm out there. I'm looking for you guys. Be ready. I'm looking for you.
All right. Baseball Gen, always a pleasure, my friend. Always glad to have you on the show. Where can folks find you on Twitter?
They can find me at baseball_Jen, and that's Jen with 2 N's.
And she's on the long toss every Sunday, folks. All right, Garth, thanks so much for joining us, my dude. Where can people follow you as a shit poster on Twitter, I think is the proper term.
Well, I like to, I'm more of a shit poster with like a heart of gold.
Yes, truly.
Add that to your bio.
You could find, I think I'm going to change it like immediately. You can find me on Twitter at Garth Orgy. I also just started a little YouTube channel called Garth Orgy's Wax Facts, where I basically open up old packs of baseball cards and kind of give out random alternative facts for each player. It's just kind of fun and stupid. And I actually just got a really generous sponsor from Twitter. And so I ordered a bunch of like pretty cool wax packs from the 80s, and it's a lot of fun. So join me. You can just search me out, Garth Orgy, on YouTube.
Amazing. And Pat McDonald, my friend, it's been way too long. It's good to see you. How are you holding up, and where can people follow you?
Yeah, things are good. Good to see you as well, man. I guess it's probably been about 3 years, something like that.
It's pre-pandemic, I think. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but no, I'm up to a lot. I can be found on Tinder, Bumble,
Christian Mingle.
G-Date.
You could have seen me out there when I did that. No, I'm on Twitter, just at Pat McDonald. Not super active, but from time to time I'll come up with something good. And as soon as my kid is vaccinated, he's too young right now, I will be out just tearing ass at some of the best and worst comedy clubs in this country.
You and me both, bud. We'll see you there.
Yeah,
all
man.
right. Again, all of you, thank you so much. I hope all of you would want to come back sometime. We really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody listening in the YouTube live chat. All the best, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Cheers.
See you guys. Thank you.